Thank you so much for joining us online today. We so appreciate you checking out this message. We hope you enjoy it and are inspired to live more and more like Jesus Christ by His grace. If you would like to support the ministries of Rancho, you can do so at rancho.tv/giving. Set up a giving profile and a reoccurring gift. We'd sure appreciate that. Enjoy.
Man, you know what? There is no doubt there could be a lot of pressure when it comes to this idea of serving. That pressure could be pretty intense. It can cause a lot of burdens in people's lives. So, maybe you're at a place in life today where because of your situation, you're a little overwhelmed, maybe because of work or because of family, difficult circumstances. Maybe you've had some trauma from unhealthy relationships where there was some codependency in giving without anything in return and it ended up broken. I just want to let you know that we hear you and we understand that. And we hope that what you're going to find is that that's not what this is about. That's not what we're going to talk about. We don't want you to feel any guilt, any shame. Matter of fact, there's a couple things I want to start off with saying that we're not going to talk about, that it's not going to be about. Number one is this, that serving is not about giving yourself out of compulsion or guilt. It's not about giving yourself out of compulsion or guilt. That's what happened with Carrie, right? Like, I always have to say yes. I always have to do more. I can't say no. This is what Jesus would do. This is what I should do. And I'm sure many of you have been there and done that. And you've been unhealthy. You found yourself unhealthy to a degree that you were overwhelmed, And so we just want you to know it's not about that. It's not about if you feel empty that, you just need to buck up and give more. Matter of fact, I heard this week. In order to be able to give, you have to have something to give. So I hope maybe you'll just receive here today, that you'll hear the grace and the love of our message here and not the guilt with that. Second is this, serving is not about proving anything to God or gaining His favor. If you've been raised with that, like you got to appease God, you got to prove to God, you got to show God you're serious. I remember we did a high school camp once, and when we drove into the camp, it said like, Jesus gave His life to you. Can't you give your life to Him? Right? That burden, you better or else. Man, we are not going to talk about that. I want to say something here that I hope you hear. It is not mandatory to serve in order to be loved, forgiven, or accepted by God. It's not mandatory. And so I hope you don't hear that today. I hope you're set free from that. So if your first thought was, oh boy, here we go. I'm going to be told that I need to do more, I need to give more, I need to serve more, that's what this is going to be about. I hope you find that that's not what we're talking about. And maybe you can find some freedom today, a little bit different of a mindset that will help you not just ignore, right, that maybe you want to move into this and serve a little bit more, but you do it in more freedom. You do it in more freedom. And it's going to take a shift of thinking. How we see this subject matters. How we see this subject has a lot to do with how we walk into it and how we live into it, right? So let's start with Romans. In the book of Romans, Paul, talking to this Roman church, shifts their mind on serving. Look what he says in Romans 7:6. But now, by dying to by dying to what once bound us, we have been released from the law so that we serve in a new way of the Spirit. You hear that shift? It's a different mindset and not in the old way of the written code. The old way is the law. You have to or else. This is how you appease. This is how you show God you're serious. This is how you do this. We don't do it in that way anymore. We now serve in the new way of the Spirit. That is freedom. Free from the law, empowered by the Spirit, and experiencing life. So here is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about 3 areas of serving today. And we're going to just break these down, and I hope it helps you see the freedom, see the beauty. So here it is. Learning the art of serving is an invitation to a happier you, healthier relationships, and a means to experience the very heart of God by being a blessing to others. I hope you can see in that statement the beauty of invitation compared to command. Do you see that? It's an invitation, not a command. And I believe that the Bible is full of invitation. Yeah, there's commands in there, right? But there are invitations. I think if you really look at it in the way that it's written, it's invitations. Let's start in like Psalm 34:8. Taste and see the Lord is good. You hear the invitation? Give it a shot. Taste it. See what you think. See that the Lord is good. Oh, some 20 or 25 years ago, when I was married to my wife for a few years, she doesn't like avocados. Anyone not like avocados here? No? Everyone likes avocados here? Good. Okay, you don't like avocados. A few years after, I finally asked her, have you ever tasted an avocado? Guess what her answer was? No. So I kind of said, honey, you should taste and see. I'm okay if you don't like, if you taste an avocado and don't like it, you haven't tasted one, have you? Oh, you get her an avocado today. We're trying avocados, right? And now she can just eat an avocado like an apple, right? Because it's amazing, amen? Superfood, right? Taste and see that the avocado is good. If you don't like it, you don't like it, right? But don't say I don't like it, you haven't tasted it. So anyways, suffice it to say, what we're talking about here is there's an invitation, taste and see. Give it a shot, put it on. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Romans 12 has a kind of similar idea here. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to what? Test and approve. Test and approve what? What God's will is. What about God's will? That it's good, pleasing, and perfect. Try it. Walk in it. See if it shows itself to be true or not, right? It's not just blindly following. The Bible is full of invitation. So can you hear the invitation in these verses? Like, come and try. You'll see the goodness of this. Come and give it a shot. You will approve God's will is good, pleasing, and perfect when you live into it. And that starts with what? Renewing your mind. Changing the way you see it. Because how we see serving, right, will impact whether we put time into it or not. And how it affects us. We could put a whole bunch of time into it and just get burdened, overwhelmed, guilt, and heaviness like Carrie experienced. Or we can not do it at all because of that. Or maybe we can find freedom. We can find freedom. So, what is serving? I want to start with just asking the question, what is serving? Basic definition, to serve is to perform duties or services for another person or an organization. That's serving. It is to perform duties or services for another person or an organization. Now, we're mainly focusing in this series on what? Relationships, right? So people, not organizations, but people. And so I want us to focus on kind of that today. Relationships, people in our lives, starting maybe in our own families, talking about friends, coworkers, fellow students at school, people you play sports with, neighbors, maybe absolute strangers that you come in contact with. Because here's one thing I found when it comes to serving. Where there are people, there is always the opportunity to practice the art of serving. Do any of you have people in your life? Anyone? People? Yeah? If you have people, if there's people, there is the opportunity to practice this art. Go to the grocery store, practice the art. The freeway, practice the art. You might not even know, right? At home, at school, at work, we have it all around us. So where there is people, there is always opportunity to practice art of serving. And it can be done in so many different ways. We're actually not going to talk a lot about what to do. I'm going to leave that up to you to have some conversations, to discuss some things, and to figure this out. We're going to talk about more of the mindset. But I came up with a list. Opening the door for someone, right? That's serving them. Help someone move. I don't have a truck for purpose, right? I got a Prius. Don't ask me. It can't carry nothing. Right? So that's not on me, but if you have a truck out there, yes. I love this bumper sticker I've seen, like, yes, this is my truck. No, I won't help you move. But anyways, so giving to a church or charity, join a team. We've been talking about that over the last few weeks. Show interest in other people's projects at work instead of just your own. Have a conversation with someone at work or at school you usually don't talk to. Buy food or bring a meal to a family that's in need. Check in on a neighbor maybe you haven't seen in a while or haven't seen them around. Check in on them. Help out at your kid's school. Is there still PTA? Join the PTA, right? Do something like that. Join a community project that helps the neighborhood. My sister-in-law and my in-laws just moved into a 50 over 55. I could live in this place. And she joined the neighborhood watch, right? They have meetings and she gets to drive around in a golf cart with a flashlight, right? Serving the neighborhood. Who are you, right? Super fun. Who knows? Call a friend you haven't talked to in a while. Provide a safe, caring environment for your kids' friends. That was a big part of our life when my kids were in high school. They had a lot of friends that had broken families, trying to have a place where they can come and find a little peace, right? Find a little peace. Putting others' interests before yours in your own home. Listening, encouraging, things we've been talking about, right? I think all the things we've been talking about, forgiving, listening, encouraging, is acts of service in some way. I'm sure we could spend our whole time together just coming up with ways to serve. And what I want to do is maybe how that might look to you looks different to someone else. So maybe this would be a great conversation today at lunch. You go have lunch, you go start eating, start a conversation. What does serving look like? How am I doing at it? What could I do more? What could we do? And talk. Come up with things. I'm sure you'll have plenty to talk about. And I don't just want to give you a list, right? I don't want to give you a list to follow because we're adults here, most of us, right? And we can think through this. I don't just want to give you, I want to talk about how we think about serving, how we think about it, why we do it, our attitudes towards it. And as Paul said, the renewing of our minds, right? How maybe we might think a little differently. So let's consider how. We already looked at the whole list. Let's go one at a time. First is this: learning the art of serving is an invitation to a happier you. It's an invitation to a happier you. And I know that might not sound real unspiritual. Maybe you came from a Christian world like I did. It's not about being happy, it's about being holy, right? So yeah, maybe you've experienced that. But I think happiness is important. I found that when I truly believe that serving has as much impact on the person serving as much as it has on the person being served, that makes a difference. It impacts you. It impacts you. It can help you have a happier you when you learn to serve other people. In the Mental Health Foundation Journal, I was reading that this week, it said, evidence shows that helping others can also benefit our own mental health and well-being. For example, it can reduce stress as well as improve mood, self-esteem, and happiness. So they're finding, mentally speaking, that when you help others, when you serve others, it actually has an impact on you and has an impact on your happiness. And I really don't think that that's against what we learn in the Bible at all. I think this idea that we shouldn't want to be happy or whatever, I don't think that's what the Bible teaches us. Matter of fact, in Acts 20:35, it says this: the Lord Jesus himself said, "It is more blessed to give than to receive." It's more blessed to give than to receive. Now, I don't know about you. When I feel blessed, I find myself feeling happier. Any of you on that same path, right? When I feel blessed, when I feel things are going good, when I'm blessed, I feel happy. And what does this verse say? Jesus in this verse, he's saying that actually the blessed one is the one that's giving more than the one that's receiving. That's pretty powerful. So not only is it talking about like, we're going to be happy, but we're saying you're going to be happier than the one getting. I mean, there's a lot of times you give and the people don't recognize. You can give and the people don't receive. You can give and the people still whatever. But it is about how it affects you. And it can affect you in a very powerful way. James talks about this. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom, okay? What a term, right? The law that gives freedom, not the law that creates burden, not the law that's hovering over you, ready to judge you, but this law that gives freedom. Any of you parents kind of have an understanding of this law that gives freedom? Have you ever had kids make bad decisions? Anyone? Anyone? Yeah? And you just knew, if you would just listen to me on this, Now they're all bummed out and sad and hurt relationships. And it's like, and you're like, I know the answer. And what does your kid feel? Leave me alone. And all you're thinking of, but this law will give you freedom, right? You understand what I mean, right? So this isn't odd. And sometimes we have to look at what God is teaching us, and what the Bible teaches us is about freedom, right? And whoever looks in that perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what he's heard, but doing it, what's it say? They will be blessed in what they do. And what blessing leads to is a happier you, right? Is a happier you. I do believe the Bible talks a lot about serving, a lot about loving one another. And I think the Bible talks as much, if not more, about how we relate to each other as much as how we relate to God. Those things can't be separated. And obviously, sometimes just thinking about how I relate to God is kind of abstract, and how I relate to people is very tangible, right? Oh, I know when it's good and when it's bad, you know? And so it talks a lot about that. So when we don't just hear, but do, we're blessed. And when we feel blessed, we feel happy. It's easier to find happiness. And that really does have an impact in our lives. But there's more to consider than just your happiness, right? I don't just want to be stuck on your happiness. There's more. Number 2, learning the art of serving is an invitation to healthier relationships. Learning the art of serving is an invitation to healthier relationships. This whole series we're doing right now, is about ways to relationship well. And how important are relationships in your life? And when they're going good, everything feels good. When they're going bad, everything feels bad. It, I believe, is one of the number one determining factors on whether we feel like we're thriving or not, is do we have healthy relationships or not? Matter of fact, I read this book called You Happier. It's by Daniel Amen. And he said this in the book: research shows that healthy relationships are the single greatest predictor of a happy life. Healthy relationships. We could be successful, but if everything's breaking down, or we could be failing at a lot of things, but if we have support and we're serving each other and we have healthy relationships, we will be happier when the relationships are thriving. And I might not always be great at this, right? I'm not always great at serving others well in my home or with my friends, but I have found one thing. I have found that when I focus on serving myself, and I hope other people focus on that too, serving me, I don't seem to experience my relationships getting healthier. Any of you relate to that? Okay, so we understand that more, right? Like when I'm selfish, I'm either gonna serve others or serve me and demand them to too, right? Because the opposite of serving others is serving myself. And I found that is a disaster, a potential disaster for relationships. For instance, got an example here, just as an example. Telling my spouse or kids, you need to serve me more, will never build healthier relationships. Have you done that? Maybe not in those exact words, but that's what we're saying. But asking my spouse or kids, how would you feel better served by me, sure can build a healthy relationship. Ever asked that question? Ever asked your spouse, how could I serve you better? When do you feel served? When do you feel not served? You ever asked your kids that? No, my kids just got to do what I say. You ever asked your kids? Kiddos, got some teenagers here. Ever asked your parents? How could I better serve in this home? Man, learn to ask that, because I tell you, I've been told that before. Well, you're not serving me, and what do? Well, you're not serving me either, right? I mean, if you come at me and you challenge me and I didn't invite you to it, I don't handle that really well. Dudes, follow me? This might be a guy thing. We're good at this, right? It took me a while to actually ask my wife, ask my kids, how am I doing? And it took a while for them to answer because dad gets defensive. That's serving each other. That's serving each other. Man, I fail at this a lot at home. My wife and I respond very differently to things. just in a nutshell, I don't want to say this in a negative way, but she has a little tendency of being a half empty, and I have a tendency of being half full. Any of you have a spouse that's different than you in this way? I might even be 90% full, which is kind of really irritating to a lot of people, right? But it's the way it is. And so with that, we look at things differently. My wife has a tendency of taking things very seriously. Things I don't think are very serious. And it doesn't go well when I say, why don't you lighten up and not take it so seriously? It doesn't go well. You ever said that kind of thing? You know, and it doesn't go well. I'm not serving my wife well there. I'm wanting her to serve me. Come on, get on the positive wheel, train, right? Let's just be happy. Let's not let this affect us. And then she has always a great answer. Oh, is it wrong for me to care about this? This happened yesterday. I called my wife this morning. I said, honey, do you mind if I talk about that, right? We're buying cushions for our patio. Man, it was on. Now it's not on. I can't find it. Where'd it go? And I go, honey, it's not that big a deal. Why can't I care about this? Oh, man, we have to learn. I have to learn. It doesn't go well. How do I empathize more? How do I look at the way she is? Because guess what? My home needs that. Because if it wasn't for that, ain't nothing getting done. I'll just surf all day and let's not worry about it, right? And so it's needed, man. Keep it together. And then it's like, you're keeping it too much together. Oh, and my wife wants me to free love and let's just have fun. She loves that, but too much of that's not all that easy. How do we serve each other in this? How do we learn to ask each other the question? How do I serve her during those times when she's frustrated about something I think's not a big deal with grace and love instead of demanding her to become more like me? Because that's then serving who? Me. Serving me. So to relationship well, we need to figure this out. We need to be able to talk about it, ask questions, and listen. I say this because I believe this is the journey towards real freedom in your relationships, real freedom in your own soul. I believe it when relationships are healthy, it's life-giving. And when they're unhealthy, it's draining. Look what Galatians 5:13 says. You, my brothers and sisters, you are called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge in the flesh. What is that he's talking about maybe when it comes to indulging in the flesh? I think that's self-serving. Consider your interest above everyone else. Consider what you need above everyone else. Demand others to serve you. Man, you're called to be free, but don't use your freedom to indulge in the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. So take that freedom you have. Take that beauty that you have now experienced in Christ. And man, find the freedom of serving others, not yourself, right? I think that's what that verse is saying. So learning to build strong, healthier relationships through serving one another actually means you're learning to live free and do good. Heard that? We should put that on t-shirts and stuff. Alex, it'd be awesome. Mugs, everything. Live free, do good, and experience the beauty of that. Maybe you don't know where to start. Maybe you're like, I want to be more like that in my home or at work or at school. I want to ask that question. I don't know where to start. Well, let's go to the next verse in Galatians. Look at what Galatians 5:14 says. Right after it says, love one another, for the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one command. Love your neighbor as yourself. I want you to think about this. Doesn't this sound a lot like the golden rule? What's the golden rule? Anyone know what the golden rule is? Do unto others. You are quiet. What? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's Matthew chapter 7. Jesus actually taught that, right? If you don't know where to start with this. What would it look like for someone to serve you and go do it to someone else? You all know how you want to be served, don't you? Oh, I know when people aren't focusing on Steve enough. I know what Steve needs. I know what it would look like. How about if I just take that? No wonder it's golden rule. What if I just take that? I've yet to treat someone the way I want to be treated and not have them respond positively. Very rarely, I haven't had someone, I treat them the way I want to be treated. I don't want to be treated that way. I found that us humans are very common. We're very unified in this. We all kind of want similar things. And so if I want my wife to care about my interest, oh, perfect, then I need to care about hers. If I want my kids to respect me, it's a harder one. Maybe I need to learn to respect them. Oh, no, little brats, just stay where you are, you know? It's hard, right? To think this through. Such a beautiful. So serving others in the way you wish you were served is a great way to start practicing the art of serving. If that's all you got, I think you're going to find that that's a pretty beautiful thing. And I think you're going to find most people want the same thing you do. And so when you do that, you're going to find them getting what it is that they're looking for. So, learning the art of serving, right? A happier you. Learning the art of serving. Building healthier relationships. And the third one might actually be the most powerful one, most beautiful one. Learning the art of serving is an invitation to experience the very heart of God by being a blessing to others. There are a lot of ways to know God and experience him. Probably every one of us, if I was to walk, how do you experience God? We might have so many different ways. When I'm reading, when I'm praying, when I'm out on a walk, when I'm just driving with music on. We have during worship, not during worship. There's probably so many ways that we all experience God. But I would say that when we serve, especially when we're just focused on blessing others, right? I'm just focused on being a blessing to others. We're actually experiencing the very heart of God, because guess what? That's exactly what God did through Christ. It's exactly how God put on display who he is. Mark chapter 10, verse 45, for even the Son of Man did not come to serve, did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. One thing you hear here at Rancho a lot is that we feel the clearest picture of God you have is Jesus. That's the clearest picture of God you have. And he did not come to be served, but he came to serve. He came to lay his life down, to give his life for the ransom of any, to show the very extent that God would go to show how deep and wide his love is, how beautiful and far-reaching his grace is, how much he accepts and loves us. And that is the way that God served us. What a beautiful picture of God. So when I serve, I'm actually experiencing that. I'm getting a little taste of that image-bearing reality of being created in the image of God. This is what Philippians says in chapter 2, verse 3. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves. Not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. That would be serving. When I value others, I naturally serve them. When I'm empathetic to others, I actually would begin to serve them. When I care about what their interests are, I'm going to walk in that, right? And look what it goes on to say. In your relationship with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. Or some translations say, have the same attitude. And then it goes on to say, who was in the form of God, but did not consider it and became humble to the point of death on the cross, laid his life down. That's the attitude. So going back to where we began, it's a mindset. It's a mindset. It's seeing that mind of God and going, oh, what a beautiful thing. What a put on display the very heart of God, a mindset that sees the value of learning to practice the art of serving, not under compulsion, not under guilt. Not to appease a dictator type God, but because when we do, we're actually tasting and seeing how life-giving God and his ways actually are. And we begin to walk in that, and we begin to test and approve that. It's not a command to follow or else, but an invitation to experience life in a deeper way. So let's recap. Learning the art of serving is an invitation to a happier you, healthier relationships, and a means to experience the very heart of God by being a blessing to each other. Last week, Scott talked about how encouragement is not just that you need encouragement, but I need encouragement, right? We all need encouragement. The most encouraging person loves to be encouraged themselves. And I think it's the same thing with serving one another. I'm not just invited to serve others, but I want to tell you, I have been so deeply blessed as others have accepted the invitation and served me. It deeply blesses me. So it's not just that you need to serve, you also need to be served. How beautiful of a picture when we are all serving each other. That is when relationships and communities can begin to thrive way beyond what we could ever imagine. Carrie's son got married a week ago. I had the privilege of officiating the wedding. And when I do these weddings, one of the things I tell to the couple is I say, Hudson, your call is to give, 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 give. Don't focus on what you're gonna get out of this marriage. Focus on what you can bring to it. And then I go, Karis, your call is to give, 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 give. Don't focus on what you can get out of it. Focus on what you can bring to it. And then I say, if you both live into that, what's gonna happen? You're both gonna be receiving more than you can ever imagine, right? More than you can ever imagine. And that's when relationships begin to be healthy. And to be honest, that's what the world's longing for, I think. Where we humans live into our image of God-bearing selves and serve each other instead of destroying each other by demanding everyone to become more like me. But we look at others and we learn to care about them above myself, and we begin to see the beauty of that. We're gonna close with a song. Evan, are you here? Oh, good, I'm glad. I saw you over there with your wife, and I'm going, hey, he's not there anymore. It seems like whenever I'm gonna teach, you go, what's a song? And I don't know a song.
Yeah, 7 years here, and you've chosen one.
One, yeah,
it's
that message
but it
with
was
human.
Incredible
It was a
song.
super good one, yeah. So this Tuesday we were talking about this, and you said, there's this song called Brother. And so I started looking at it, and right away I'm like, oh, this is it. It talks about being a shelter. It talks about, everyone needs a shelter, right?
That's why I chose it.
So right away you went to that song. Like, why, based on what I was gonna talk about, did that just come to mind so easily and quickly?
Well, as we're having this conversation, you kind of started, I think you actually said a lyric of the song as you were trying to describe what you were gonna be talking about. And I was like, I know this song that talks about being a shelter. And it's not just about being a shelter for someone, but it's also about being sheltered by others. Yeah. It's called Brother for a reason, because there's this connection there that's like, I've got you, you've got me. No matter what we're going through, we've got each other, and we're going to bear each other's burdens. It's just
we don't only need to serve, we need to be served.
That's right.
I heard a psychologist once said, like, if you treat everyone as though they're hurting and need of something, you're treating 95% of the people right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
how cool is that?
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for coming up with the song.
Yeah.
I hope you guys can just sit and just listen. Let this sink in. Think about in your own heart and mind, like, what ways you might step into this a little more, or maybe even like how you might need this, someone else, and how powerful that is, because people right next to you might be needing it too. So thanks for bringing this song and sharing it with us, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
We can't find what we need. Get a little restless from the searching. Get a little worn down in between. Like a bull chasing the matador. Is a man led to his own schemes. Where everybody needs someone beside them, shining like a lighthouse from the sea. Brother, let me be your shelter. Never leave you all alone. I could be the one you call when you're low. Brother, let me be your fortress when the night winds are driving on. The one to light your way, bring you home. Face down in the desert now. There's a cage locked around my heart. I found a way to drop the key where my failures were. Now my heads can't reach that far. I ain't made for rivalry. I can never take the world alone. I know that in my weakness I am strong. That it's your love that brings me home. Brother, let me be your shelter. Never leave you all alone. I can be the one you call when you're old. Brother, never leave your